Welcome to End of Life University on YouTube. Today I'm sharing with you an interview. This is an audio interview I did with Roz Jones, who trains caregivers to care for their loved ones at home. And this is such an important topic. We've been discussing a lot lately about caregivers who've had no training trying to care for someone at home. And Roz is someone who created a business to provide the training that people need. So I think you'll enjoy listening to our conversation. Before you go, be sure to subscribe to this channel so you'll get notifications whenever I post a new interview. Today, I'm very happy to welcome my special guest, Roz Jones. Roz is the founder of Jacksonville's Best Caregivers, an organization in Jacksonville, Florida, that provides short and long-term health care. She is also a crisis counselor, author, speaker, and caregiver coach who provides training to new caregivers and their family members so they're able to best care for their loved ones. You can find out more about Roz's work and read her blogs at her website, which is thecaregivercafe.net. Roz, thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you. I am excited and ready to speak to your community, but thank you for the opportunity.
You're so welcome. I'm very excited to learn from you and hear about your experiences in this caregiving arena right now. But before we get started with some of my questions, would you just tell us your story? Because I know you used to be involved in the corporate world, and
Yeah.
now you've opened Jacksonville's Best Caregivers, and you're a coach and advocate for caregivers. So tell us, how did you get from there to here?
Well, I was working for a huge insurance company, huge, very huge. And of course, I was on the way up the corporate ladder, heading into the C-suite. And one of the ladies from the church, I was at church, and one of the ladies from the church said, "I'm going in to have surgery, get part of her colon was blocked." And she said, "They're just going to cut the blockage off and then, put the other two pieces together. I'm going to be in there for 2 days. Would you please come with me to the hospital?" It really wasn't a please. It was like, "You're going with me." So her husband was dead, no children, and her sister had stage 4 cancer and wasn't able to come to the hospital. So I said, "Sure, it's just 2 days. I can handle that." So we went on in, signed the paperwork. The doctor said, "I'm only going to keep you 2 days in the hospital. You can go straight home. You won't need rehab," so on and so forth. Okay, great. Doctor said the procedure's going to take a couple of hours, and then she may be in rehab maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then, we'll send her up to the room. We'll come and get you. Well, the couple of hours passed. I didn't worry about it too much. Then all of a sudden, the doctor comes out. He still has his beanie on and his mask, which is not a good sign. So the doctor says, "Rosalind," and I've been given, authority to use her name. "Miss Sweet has more blockage than what we thought, and we have to have emergency surgery. We have to cut out probably more than a foot of her intestines because it's blocked." And I said, "Wait a minute. I don't have authority. I don't have the power of attorney. I don't have anything that says that I can even say go with this." But I told them, whatever the hospital policy is on this, please move forward and do whatever is necessary. So they move forward, and 2 days of care turned into 2 weeks of care. Then those 2 weeks of care turned into 6 weeks of rehab. So my life changed from Sunday to Sunday. In between the time while I was taking care of her at the hospital, the nurses kept coming in and said, "Oh my goodness, Rosalind, you are wonderful, a wonderful sitter, a wonderful advocate for her, and she's not related to you." And, I really didn't think anything of it. I just knew it was the right thing to do because she was, of course, by herself. So I went, she was telling me about this business down the street that was looking for sitters for the hospital. "Rosalind, won't you go?" I said, "No." She said, "Yeah." So I didn't want to go, but I went on and went. Something, your conscience gets to you, tap you on the shoulder. I don't know
Mhm.
if it was my conscience or an angel, but somebody tapped me on my shoulder and said, "Go." I went. I said, "Well, how much are you paying?" And she said, "Minimum wage." I said, "Excuse me?" She said, "Minimum wage." I said, "Oh," I said, "I don't know if I could do this. I don't know." Because I said, what you pay, I make that in less than 15 minutes of work. And so I went on and did it. Loved the city. So I stayed, of course, I stayed at the facility. I mean, at the insurance company. Went on and got my license. Went on and got my master's in business, and so on and so forth. So as I was sitting, I started learning and getting my credentials. I opened up my business first and failed. And most people would have quit, but I didn't. So I said, I'm going to try again. And I went through the proper channels this time. I went through the Small Business Administration. I went through SCORE, and all of the places where I could get all of the basic stuff that I needed that I didn't get through my MBA. And so here it is, more than 15 years later.
Wow.
I am now Jacksonville's best caregivers, and ta-da, I'm here.
Wow. Sometimes, you're in the right place at the right time, and you may not even realize it in the moment when things are happening, but it turns out down the road, this was meant to be, it sounds like.
Yes, yes.
So Jacksonville's Best Caregivers, is that a residential facility? Do people live there? And
No, we actually go into people's homes. We go to assisted living facilities, long-term care facilities, hospice. We go in when the family, like say for instance, we have one lady that we take care of 7 days a week from 8 to 5. And at the end of the day, then the family comes back in the evening and then takes care of the loved one. So we kind of fill the gap where the family can't be there. We're there. And so that's a good thing, to be able to do that. So we do it in private. We do private duty in homes, assisted living facilities, long-term care. We also travel with our clients. We've, traveled with them to birthday parties, weddings, with the client. If the client wants to go to the hairdresser, we take them to the hairdresser. We call them field trips. We have one lady that wants a Bloody Mary once a month, so we take her to get a Bloody Mary.
Wow. I'm sure you're finding a huge demand for those services right now.
Oh my God, Karen, yes. The COVID has made it easier for caregivers to leave their jobs at the hospital and go into private duty. So it's good and bad, because now the hospitals are short, but the private duty industry is skyrocketing to where before it was hard to get private duty, but now because of COVID, people don't want to take we have to take the tests weekly before we go into the facilities. It's a lot of extra work when you are taking care of someone inside a facility versus at home. They may require you to take a COVID test once a month or maybe once every 3 months, versus in facilities where at one time we were doing it every 2 weeks, every week, every couple of days. So it's been good and bad on both sides of the coin, so far as for people who are private duty caregivers, with a minimal license as a sitter or a homemaker companion, all the way up to CNA. So really now the sky's the limit for private duty caregivers.
It seems to me that more people are choosing to stay at home if they can, rather than go into a facility.
Yes.
I don't know if that's what you're finding, but there's such a huge need for this kind of caregiver assistance that you're providing, because a family caregiver there aren't enough hours in the day to do everything, for one person to do everything that's needed sometimes to take care of a patient.
Exactly, Karen. There's not enough hours, and there's not enough family members to do this. There's not enough. As I was discussing before, the White House Council on Aging said that in 2020, we were going to have a caregiver crisis, because we were going to have 75 million people that need caregiving services. And out of that, only about 35 million have a family member, not a whole lot, just one family member that could provide anywhere from 6 to 8 hours a week. What happens to the other 16 hours? What happens to the other 40 or 50 million people that don't have caregivers? Okay. And
Wow.
then, according to the White House Council on Aging, 10,000 people hit the Medicare rolls. So they are also eligible for caregiving services.
Yes, it's really a problem that keeps growing and growing. It's just like a snowball going downhill, more and more and more
Yeah.
patients, and not the number of caregivers is not by any means keeping up with it. We already had a gap, and now we're so far behind. I'm just wondering how we're going to meet this need. Do you have any thoughts about that?
My thought is that we, as a nation on a whole, are going to have to say, well, we're going to have to eventually, because there's not enough facilities, because now they're trying to build enough facilities, but because of COVID, people are scared to go into facilities. So they want to come and live with their daughter or their son or whoever that may be. And so if you are in a position to help someone, or if you think you can do it, you know, if you do decide to do it, get the right training. Get the right training. But understand, when you take on a role like this, it has an emotional impact, it has a physical impact, it has a financial impact as well. Because when you get into caregiving, if you're doing it as for a family member, realize that you're not getting paid, and realize that you may have to work from home. So, there are a lot of jobs out there now. COVID has been a blessing, and, and I hate to say the word a curse, but it's been good and bad. It's
Yes.
been good because you have a lot of home business and home jobs, work at home jobs. So if you are a caregiver, you still can make money. Before, it was hard to find those kind of jobs. Now those jobs are more prevalent than going into the office.
Yeah, so that's true. So that could potentially increase the pool of family caregivers if more people are able to work from home. They could be a
Exactly.
caregiver and work from home at the same time.
Yes. And so people, I happen to be on YouTube, and I was looking at how many of these, they recommend videos. I had 12 recommendations just on how to work from home, let's say for Amazon, for United Way, or for the Hilton Hotel or the Marriott. Call centers are wanting you to work from home. Amazon, Etsy, all of these different places. Blue Cross and Blue Shield, the Department of Health, that need people to work on the call center from home. And so, now if the family caregivers are home, think about the fact that, okay, the biggest thing is always financial. So now if we can get you with a job at home, that alleviates the financial problem, and you could be a better caregiver instead of being a bitter caregiver. And
Mm.
you don't want to give care being bitter.
And you were mentioning, I was just thinking about, what about someone who's never been a caregiver before? Because I'm imagining, like you described, there are a lot more people right now being kind of called into the need to take care of a loved one at home. Do you have other tips for them, or advice for someone who's a brand new caregiver? You mentioned the emotional, physical, and financial impact, like, and also, I guess, getting training, you were saying, is
Mhm.
something everyone needs.
The first basic training I would ask everyone to get, if you're going to be a caregiver, get your CPR training. If you don't do anything else, get your CPR training. And I would say get food safety training, so that how, everybody knows how to cook, don't get me wrong. But when you have an older person in, you want to make sure that the food is prepared, and that, that you do correct food safety procedures. So I always encourage people to do CPR and food safety. Then the next thing I encourage people to do, if you're going to be a caregiver, is to get your documentation, your advanced directives. I have a free resource that I will provide to your audience on just I think at least 10 resources nationally and locally, where you can get your advanced directives done for free or for a nominal fee, depending on what your income is, or it could be pro bono through your state bar association. So, you know, those are some of the three things. And then also too, proper body mechanics on how to, ask someone to stand up, how to lift someone so you don't hurt yourself. So, those are some of the basic things, and how to, change someone in the bed if they're bedridden. If you're going to do that, how to place someone in the shower safety, how to get those, safety rails in to help them get in and out the shower. So, there's a couple of things that you would need to implement once you decide to be a caregiver, to make sure that that person is safe. But then also too, you need to implement the conversation on, what you can and can't do as a caregiver, and have that conversation with the person. Let them know, say, hey, I'm not available 24/7. I'm gonna have office hours because I work at home. So we have to prepare, just like if I was going to work, I'm still here for you, but realize that, if I'm working, I gotta take care of this business so that, we all can stay here in the house. So those are the couple of tips that, I would give, right away, to a caregiver to help them begin that process.
Oh, those are excellent tips. And when you mentioned getting training just the mechanics of lifting someone, I had this very experience. Here I am, a hospice doctor, have the medical training to do medical care for someone at the end of life, but I was taking care of my own mom in her last few days of life. And she tried to crawl out of bed and was hanging half out of bed, half in. And I had no idea how to safely lift her back into bed. And it was 2 a.m. And I suddenly realized, oh my goodness, I didn't get training on this. I don't know how to do this. And I realized it's really important. You have to know this, because you might find yourself like I did, in the middle of the night in a difficult situation. And I had to kind of think through how can I safely help her, because I knew if I throw my back out, then we're both in trouble. So
Yeah. I always tell people, if you're going to have someone at the house with you, get what is called a gait belt, GAIT. And if that person falls or slips, you put the gait belt around them, just like a regular belt, and that will help you lift the person. Now, if you don't have the gait belt there, then you take a flat sheet or a fitted sheet, and you wrap it around it, and that will help you lift the person. So, there's a couple of ways to, lift the person safely without hurting yourself. And and because of my training, I know that you can use a sheet if you don't have a gait belt. So there's a couple of things that you could do to make sure that the person gets up safely and that you don't hurt yourself. But also too, know this: you also can call rescue and ask them, this is not emergency, I just need someone to come out and help me lift my loved one off the floor and get them back in the bed. And it's in the state of Florida, it's no charge. I don't know about anywhere else, but I know in the state of Florida, we can call for to get someone off of the floor.
Mm, that's really good to know. But you're so right. This very basic training, it's just things that the average person doesn't really learn about any of this in our day-to-day lives,
Exactly.
unless we grew up with someone that needed care at home. So we got to see it and got to see other people do it. So but it's just so valuable. And I would think it helps the caregiver so much with their stress if they've had some proper training before they start doing this work.
Exactly. And sometimes, because of the urgency, there's no time for training. Sometimes it's on the job training. I've had one client that I'm doing now virtually. Her mother decided called on, I think it was July the 1st, and said, I'm ready to move in with you. And so she called me. She said, my mother said she's ready to move in. I said, okay, so when is she going to move in? She said she's on her way here now. I said, oh my. Sometimes, sometimes you don't have time to plan, and it's on the job training. So that's why she she hired me was because she said, I can't do this without your help. And I said, well, this is what it's going to be. If I train, she didn't have a problem with that. Everybody doesn't have, sometimes the financial to do it. However, on my YouTube page, I just started recording some basic training, how to put a diaper on, how to fold a bed, how to, walk with a person that's had a right side or a left side stroke. So these are the things that, training helps, and it gives you peace of mind, but it also makes the person that you're taking care of help them feel not afraid that you can actually handle them. So sometimes, like I said, caregiving you can plan for, and other times you can't plan for it. It just happens.
Mm-hmm. And then you have to just do the best you can to learn in the
That's
moment,
it.
I guess. Yeah.
And I want people to know that when you become a caregiver, anything that you try to do is not wrong. Please know that. And if you're doing it from your heart, there's no manual on it. Has to be done by A, B, C, and D. If you find a better way that's more comfortable for you, then rock and roll with it. So I
Yeah.
want to put that out there.
Yeah. And I was wondering too, during COVID-19, do you advise family caregivers, I mean, say their loved one doesn't have COVID-19, but do you advise them to take extra precautions to make sure they keep their loved ones safe?
Oh, absolutely. With the caregivers, I would say if you're taking care of someone and you still had to go to work physically, all I would ask that you would do is when you get home to immediately take a shower. Immediately wash your hands when you get in. If you can't get to the shower as soon as you get in, at least wash your hands up to your elbows. If you're bringing in a bag or if you're bringing in groceries, let the groceries sit in a certain place for a couple of hours before you touch it. If it's if it's a non-perishable, if it's a perishable, then you have to put it in your refrigerator. But if it's a non-perishable, let it sit out, get yourself taken care of. Also, too, when you come in the house, I always say, spray the bottom of your feet with Lysol. Have the can at the back door or have the can, at your front door, wherever it is you come in, and just spray the bottom of your feet and take your shoes off and leave the shoes at the front door. These little small tips. So, and then if you have to have contact with your loved one, again, make sure that you shower. If you do go out to go to work, wash your clothes separate from theirs. It doesn't take that much extra work, to do a separate load. Wash your towels separate from them. I'd rather take the precautions than to have the adverse, situation go on. So, those minor inconveniences will keep you healthy as well as keep your loved ones safe and healthy as well. Mm-hmm. And reduce the opportunity for COVID, to come in as well. Washing, make sure, you wash the sheets, just wash everything separately, period, point blank. So those are the things that you have to remember as well when, if you are the family member taking care of the loved one. If you have a caregiver coming in, ask them to wear a mask. Please wear a mask while you're here, or please use gloves when you handle my mom and dad. So, those are the type of things too that you look at as a caregiver.
Yeah. Yeah. That all makes sense. That taking extra precautions makes sense. I hear so many stories of people saying, "Oh, we just let down our guard one time." We weren't careful one time. So going a little overboard and taking extra precautions will kind of help prevent those little lapses where we forget and aren't as careful.
Exactly. And I'm not telling anybody to be a clean freak, because God knows I'm not. But like at night before you go to bed, spray your cabinets, the top of your cabinets with Lysol or wipe it down. Same thing in the bathroom. After your loved one used the bathroom, spray it with Lysol, or spray it with that whatever if the Lysol is too strong, there's several other sprays out there that are disinfectant. I think it's seventh generation, and some other microbody type sprays that you can spray, and it will kill the germs. So all of those things that we used to take for granted, now let's just kind of step it up a little bit.
And it's such good advice. It's not just COVID right now that we need to think about too, because it could just be, it could be the flu, but it could just be a cold virus that's going around that could be
Exactly.
deadly for a fragile older person. And so all these precautions are going to help against those other illnesses too.
Exactly. Then also too, when COVID started for me, I went on and started taking vitamin C, B12, and some other things, knowing that flu season was coming. And now it's never too late to take your vitamins. Now it's never too late. But I just started trying to build up my immune system, drinking more water, trying to get more rest when I could. And so, those also too are things you have to look at. And with your loved one being home or being isolated, we have to exercise them more. What has happened is many of our seniors have muscle weakness, leg weakness, because they have been so isolated to their rooms and couldn't get out. And so what's happening is, because they have become so weak because of COVID, if the flu happens or they get an infection, they can't fight back because they're so weak because of the restrictions of COVID.
Oh, that's such a good point, because so many are being asked to just stay at home or stay in their rooms. They're really not getting even the typical amount of daily exercise they would have
Exactly.
gotten in the past.
Exactly. So, those are some of the things that, COVID has caused. But, I say that COVID has brought families together. I hate to say that's been the good thing about it. Making them realize and understand how important family is in relationships. So a lot of families have improved, and maybe some have gotten on your nerves. But however, in the long run, I think there's been some good for COVID. I don't want to make it all bad, but there's been some good.
Yes, yes. I think you're right. It's bringing about a lot of changes, and it's opening our eyes in a lot of ways to things that we need to pay attention to. So
Exactly.
that's a good thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
One thing that I've been concerned about for a while is just the amount of stress that caregivers are under, especially if it's one person trying to care for a loved one at home and having no other outside help at all. And it seems to me that that can take a huge toll on the caregiver's health as well.
Yes, ma'am. That is called caregiver burnout. When you are trying to do it all and you don't want to give anybody a call for help. I was sharing with, matter of fact, the person that I do the one-on-one caregiving with in Knoxville. She was having a caregiver burnout day yesterday. She said, "I'm so tired of taking care of everybody." And I said, "Well, one of the rules that you broke in our coaching was you didn't set boundaries. You have got to set boundaries, and you have to know when to say no, and you have to know when to ask for help, and you have to be willing to look for the help and get the resources." Just like I told her, I said, "I can look up all the resources I can in Knoxville, but if you don't pick up the phone, I can't speak on your behalf. I don't have power of attorney. I don't have your mom's information. So there's nothing, it's some things I can't do. It's some things you have to do. And if you don't implement these strategies at the beginning of caregiving, then you're going to suffer burnout. You are
Mhm.
going to suffer burnout if you don't spend time with yourself, if you don't invest in yourself, if you don't set the boundaries, listen to some soft music, do yoga, affirmations, pray, whatever it is, go get your hair done, pedicure, manicure, whatever it is. You have to do something to break up that day-to-day routine, or you're going to have caregiver burnout sooner than later. And sometimes you'll get sick or something that happened to you before it happens to the one you're taking care of because you're so burned out.
Oh, it's true. I've heard so many stories like that. It's just tragic.
It is. It is because we are trying to do it all ourselves, and we're trying to prove to our mother, our father, our aunt, uncle, whoever it is, that I can do it all. But then also too, and our mothers are good at this. You know, they want to put the caregiver guilt on you. They'll say, well, if your father was still here, he would take care of me. Or if your sister was around, you know, I wouldn't have this problem. I wouldn't have to wait for this, and I wouldn't have to wait, and they put the caregiver guilt on you to say, okay, I got to give up my whole life to do everything. No, ma'am, no, sir, you don't. You don't do that.
And
No.
I like your tip that you need to set those boundaries at the beginning of this caregiving relationship, because maybe the person won't need quite as much at that time and won't have as many demands for you in the beginning. But if you already establish, I have boundaries, I need this for myself right from the beginning, then when the dynamics change a little bit down the road, you will already have those strong boundaries in place.
Exactly. And when, like you said, when the dynamics change, when the condition takes a shift or a decline, if they go from stage 1 Alzheimer's to stage 2 or stage 3, you have to discuss before the disease gets so far, what kind of treatment do you want in this stage? What type of treatment do you want in stage 2? What type of treatment do you want in stage 3? How do you want to be cared for? And at the end of life, what do you want? And all this needs to be written down. And these need to be tiny, bite-sized conversations. Don't try to have this caregiving conversation all at one time, because you're going to overwhelm the person, number one. And number two, they're going to feel like you're taking over their life and taking away their independence. Have small conversations and let them make the decisions on what they need. And once they make the decision, then you say, okay, this is all I'm able to do, and this is what you need, and you have more needs than I have hours. So we have to hire a caregiver. So, that's the type of conversations you have to have. And, be realistic too. If you get to the point to where you are bedridden and I can't pick you up, I have to be able to put you into a facility where people who are better trained than I am can lift you and take care of you better than what I can without you getting hurt. These are the conversations you have to have.
Mm. Oh, and you're so right. And you're right. It needs to happen early on while the patient cognitively can understand everything, and
Exactly.
you can put this down in writing right away, so you can fall back on it later on when you need to.
And Karen, the reason why it's so important to put it in writing is because when there is an emergency, you will be surprised how people are scared to make a decision, or they go into the fight or flight mode and can't make a decision. And if you can't make a decision at a critical time when a doctor needs an answer, that's not the time to freeze. And that's not the time to say, well, I can't do it. Let me call my sister. Sometimes time is of the essence, and we don't have time, to get a final answer, or, to get a lifeline. We don't have time sometimes.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. Well, I'm really glad to hear that in your training, you train people to have these conversations right away with their loved ones. Because some people probably imagine, well, if we're together every day, there's no rush. We'll have plenty of time. I can bring it up some other time and talk about this. But I think you're right. It needs to happen at the very beginning.
Karen, just like my life changed between Sunday to Sunday, in a blink of an eye, anything could happen to where you can't talk, walk. So how do we handle your bills? How do we make sure your life insurance policy is still getting paid for? Because if something happens, and God forbid you're in the hospital for 3 months and your bills don't get paid, your life insurance could be discontinued. And, it's harder to get life insurance when you have a pre-existing condition versus you already having a life insurance before the condition happened, because then the policy premium goes up.
And I could see it's really good to talk about too. What if I can't care for you at home,
Exactly.
and have already addressed that reality? Like, I'll keep you at home and stay with you as long as I can, but
Exactly.
there could be a day when this won't happen, so that you start getting some buy-in for that possible decision that could have to be made down the road.
And let the decision be made now, so that if it comes up and you are so emotional where you can't make that decision, here it's written down. This is what my mother wants. Here are her wishes in writing. And it takes the burden off of you, and she has put everything in place so that you are not left with that decision in your hands. She made that decision. She made that
Yes.
decision.
Oh, yes. And because that's another type of caregiver guilt. If you have to make a really difficult decision like that, and without knowing that what your loved one would want, or that they would be okay with the decision you're making, like that could be overwhelming.
The anxiety, the stress, am I doing this right? Is this what mama wants? How do I know mama wants this? Does she want to be on a ventilator? Do we administer CPR? Does she want to do not resuscitate? Does she want to be donated to science, cremated, organs donated? All this stuff has to be not only put in, a will, but you also have to have documentation for pretty much everything except cremation, to donate your body to science, to donate your organs. All of this has
Yeah,
to has to be on paper.
I've seen it too, when if there are other siblings or family members who aren't involved in the day-to-day care,
Mhm.
but who may show up later and have questions about why these decisions were made. It's very helpful when it's in writing, to show them, like, this is what
Yeah,
she
this is what
wants.
mama wanted. This is what daddy wanted. This is what our aunt wanted. This is what they wanted. And if you're an only child, you don't have to worry about everybody else. Maybe your aunts and uncles, but they don't have much say. If you have brothers and sisters, give them the opportunity to come and talk. If they don't talk, say, when mama make the decision, don't say anything when she closes her eyes, because she's put it down in writing. So don't come huffing and puffing about the do not resuscitate. If that's what she wanted, she signed the paperwork. Don't huff and puff if she wanted to be cremated versus having a casket funeral. Don't huff and puff about that. We gave you opportunity to sit in and to help. If you decided not, then you don't have any say so. And then, also too, remember, as a caregiver, if your parents adopted any children, they have as much blood right as a child who was born naturally to the parents. So if there's a stepchild, or if there's adopted children, make sure everything is in order. Particularly for these people who are foster parents. You
Mm.
know, we need to make sure all the paperwork is in line, because if you decide to adopt or whatever, you have to make sure that not only the adopted kids know, but the blood children know that if something happens, everybody has equal rights.
Mm. That's a really good point too. Something that I don't think about very often, but you're so right about that. We can get into so many tricky family situations.
Exactly, exactly. And the biggest mess I always tell people is at a funeral and a wedding. Those are your two biggest family fights.
I think you're exactly right there.
Yes, ma'am. So, those are the things that we need to look at with caregiving, and with COVID being in. Like I said, for those family members who have lost to COVID, because I know it's impacted my family, and now we have a different outlook on what's important, but then we also have a different outlook on how important paperwork is. And that is my goal, is to make sure that you understand what you can do while, if your loved one is in the hospital, have that paperwork. Have that paperwork. But then also too, you can do things to try to alleviate, to make sure that they don't get COVID, reduce the amount of places where they go to. Try to go to the grocery store first thing in the morning where there's, the least amount of people. If you have to go and get food at a restaurant, do takeout. If you have to travel, eat your food in the car. Don't go in a restaurant. There are things that you can do, alternative decisions that would reduce the opportunity for you and your family, getting COVID.
Yes, yes, and we just have to take those precautions now. Now that this virus is surging everywhere around the country, there really isn't anywhere you could go and not probably be at risk if you aren't being careful.
That's true. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I wanted to ask you, there's a couple of things. I know that you've written a book called Loneliness Kills, and about loneliness and our senior population. And that's another concern I have right now around COVID, that not only for our seniors, for all of us in some ways, the amount of loneliness and isolation we're experiencing has really increased, but it seems like it's devastating for our elderly population.
Loneliness loneliness was already there. As you get old, your friends die off. You're in your 60s and 70s, you start seeing more people. When you get in your 80s, they really start dying off. When you get in your 90s and 100s, you may have a few family members your age or a few friends, but then the important thing to them is growing old with God. Spirituality is really important as friends start to die off. So having that greater power, whatever it is that you connect with, is really important. How has COVID impacted loneliness? Oh my God. Like I said, they had to isolate everyone in their rooms and a lot of these facilities. So loneliness probably spiked. I can't even call the number out, probably 100-fold. Loneliness and isolation, to where, like I said, these nursing homes were not built for isolation. They were built for community. A lot of people move into that so that I can be around some people that are hopefully somewhere around my age. But I didn't, come into a community for the administrator to tell me I got to stay in my room. I got to stay, and I can't come out. I can't even come out for dinner. Loneliness. If we would look at the deaths in these nursing homes, how many people have died just behind loneliness, I think it would be probably hundreds of thousands have died from loneliness because they could not get out. They could not get to their family. They didn't have any contact with anybody.
Mm. That's so true. Do you have any thoughts of what can we do? I mean, I realize that probably the only contact for some of them are with staff members of the facility, but those staff members are busy. They're rushing around and taking care of everyone, and they don't have time to sit and listen to a story or, you know, eat a meal or a snack together with one of these patients. Do you have other thoughts about how we can help with this?
Well, if you all have family members that have a loved one in a nursing home, if everybody would write a letter to them, handwriting is a lost art. So if we would write letters to them, if we would go, even if you go to the dollar store and get a stack of cards that say, I'm thinking about you, and write something and send it. So if all the family members would get together once a month, that's 30 cards that person has to go throughout the month. If that's huge. Say, for instance, you do a video recording, or if you make arrangements with the nursing home for that person to come outside and the family, sits with them in an open area, but at least you could see them. So Zoom video, FaceTime, those type of things can help. But if they could do letters, cards, send candy, send balloons, send a teddy bear, record your voice and send it to them, on their phone. things like that.
Yeah.
Um, that's helpful. So, these are the type of things that you can do so that they can hear the person's voice, even though I can't see you. I can hear your voice. I get a card. I know you're thinking about me. I get some candy, my favorite peppermint candy, whatever it is. Or if I have a stuffed animal, those are the things that still keeps their mind sharp, and let them know that they have not been forgotten. And that's the biggest thing. When you grow old, the only time people come and see you is on those special days, you know, on the death of your husband or the death of your wife, your birthday, your anniversary, Easter, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, those 9 holidays out the year, and that's it. But what about the other 300 and, 54 days? Oh,
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, they need to know that they still matter, that they're still important, and that we still care about them.
Yeah, so those are the little things that we can do. I know for my client, her great nieces and nephews colored pictures, made pictures of her, and I thought that was the cutest little thing. And she put them on the refrigerator.
Oh, that's
And,
really
and
cute.
yeah, and so we took pictures of her standing next to the refrigerator, putting the pictures up, and we sent it back to the great nieces and nephews. So those are little small activities that we could do, and then also too, as a caregiver, we were allowed during COVID to take that person out at least once a week. Drive them in the car and let them ride around, or take them outside to walk. So you could hire a caregiver to go in once a week in these facilities and just spend time with your loved one, even if it's just to walk them up and down the street.
Mm,
So those are the little things that we can do.
yeah. And I would think every one of those little things could have a big impact if we're consistent and we keep that up, and we keep doing little things just to show our seniors that they matter to us.
Yeah, a person's life is extended because of the care that we give them. And I want and I'm putting emphasis on that is because, you know, uh, just like a plant lives because you give it water, you give it fertilizer, you give it light. My grandmother used to talk to the plants. I didn't understand it, but now I do. So everything needs some type of human contact. So if a plant does well because of human contact, what do you think a person would do?
Yeah. Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
Well, Roz, I'm so impressed with the training that we've talked about that you give to caregivers. First of all, just like the physical aspects of giving care, but then even the self-care for caregivers so that you get them started on a good footing. If from the very beginning they can be taking care of themselves and protecting themselves and setting some boundaries even while they're giving the best possible care to their loved one, it seems like that's the ideal situation.
Exactly. Exactly. And I always say this: if someone asks you to be a caregiver and you're not ready, and you know in your heart you can't handle it, please say no. It's okay to say no. Don't let the guilt, don't let all of that get on you um, about about being a caregiver. Some people can't handle Some people can't handle coming to the hospitals. Some people can't handle cleaning up a house. Everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. If that is something you can't do, please say no. Please say no. And that we will have to find someone to come and sit with you in your house or your home, or we'll have to find a facility that you would like for you to be in. But I know in my own mind that I would not be able to do that. That's, if you know you can't do it, please say no. I'd rather for you to say no than to be bitter or to be abusive to someone.
Mm. And you're probably right. There probably are people who felt kind of forced into a caregiving role for whom it wasn't a good fit. It just didn't come naturally to them, and yet there they are feeling stuck.
Exactly. Exactly. And particularly for only children. A lot of times, if you're the only child, you're like, okay, there's nobody else. I don't know what to do. but you still have a choice. You still have a choice, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. And that should be part of that initial conversation, I think, that you have with your loved one about, I'd love to be able to do this for you, but I'm not the person. I just can't do
I'm
it.
not the one.
And
I can't do it. I'm gonna be, I can't do it. Some people cannot watch their mom who's been so strong deteriorate because of Alzheimer's. They can't do it. And it's okay. It's okay. You will not, you know, God is not going to stop you from getting into heaven because you said no. So I just want people to know that, you still have an opportunity to go. But I would, I just don't want anybody to feel like, they are breaking a 10 commandment because they said no.
yes, yes, so true. We have to, we're only capable of so much, and we do have to know our own limitations.
Exactly. Yes, ma'am.
Well, if someone listening is interested in getting the training that you offer, would you
Okay.
tell us about it? What does it consist of, and is it available online? And how can
Well, right
people
now
access?
everything it's online, but I do the training. So everything is online, but we do it through Zoom. We have a 4-week class, we have a 2-month class, we have a 6-month class, and then we have a one-on-one. So we have 4 different levels, um, to take care of whatever your need is. If there's an immediate need and you can't wait for the class, then you would let me know. You can contact me at bit.ly/speak with Roz, bit.ly/speak with Roz. And I have a calendar, and we can set up an appointment and decide which one of the trainings is appropriate for you, for us to do over Zoom.
Oh, that's great. I'm writing that down so that it will be in the show notes for this
Yeah.
episode if anyone's interested. Um, wow, it seems to me like actually getting some of this training, this would be a really good gift to give if you know someone who's going to be have to become a caregiver at some point down the road or is already doing it, but to be able to participate in this training and really learn some skills and learn how to handle the duties of a caregiver, it seems like that would be a tremendous gift to offer.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. Totally agree.
And so another blessing of COVID, I guess, is that your training now is online since it can't be any other way, but now it's available to a much wider audience out there.
Exactly. And some of the training that I'm doing is also going to be on my YouTube page, which is Jacksonville's Best Caregivers. So I've already started the training for the advanced directives. I started the training on, how do you know that you've hired the wrong caregiver? So
Oh.
oh yeah, sometimes it's not a good fit and you have to let them go.
Mhm.
So, and that's very important when you're hiring. So, I've talked about, traveling during COVID, your documentation that you need, if you've hired the wrong caregiver. Right now, part of my emphasis is on the Medicare open enrollment. So I'm doing a lot of stuff on Medicare to make people aware of what is important as you review your, Medicare benefits. What is it that needs to change, or maybe it doesn't need to change.
Oh, that's great. So I'll refer people to your YouTube channel also then.
Thank you, ma'am.
Those are great topics. And then I noticed you have a lot of blogs, really helpful blogs on your
Oh my
website
God,
too.
yes.
You've
I
been
have
there.
I have blogs all over the place. Matter of fact, one of the biggest caregiving companies, resource companies, caregiving.com, just asked me to be one of their contributing writers, content writers, and creators. So I am proud to be part of that family now as a contributing writer. And also, my YouTube videos will be coming on their website in the near future.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
And
but my blogs are already on their page, caregiving.com.
And then your website is thecaregivercafe.net,
Yes.
just for anyone listening. And I can say from reading your blogs, you're a great writer.
Thank
So
you.
I'm not surprised that they invited you to be a content creator because your your content is excellent, and it's also you just have a unique perspective, and you've come up with some ideas and insights that I don't read everywhere else. So I really enjoyed looking through everything that you've put together there.
Thank you so much. I try to do uh, everything. I try to help the whole caregiver. What if you don't get along, or what if need a mental break. So I try to address everything that I think that a caregiver, and the things that I have learned over the years that I see and I know and I think that caregivers are going to need. So that's where the writing comes in. And so if you can believe it, a lot of times I write these blogs late at night, and I write them all at one time, and then I load them. Yeah.
Well, that's when your inspiration comes, I'm sure. But it's a tremendous asset. So I just want to thank you for everything that you're doing, and I'm so
Sure.
glad that all those years ago you made that shift from the corporate world to what you're doing right now, because it's a huge blessing and for everyone, and I'm sure you're right where you're meant to be, and we're all grateful for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to your community. I've had a good time.
Yes, me too. I hope we get to talk again because it's been fun to learn from you, Roz, and so good luck to you. I hope everyone stays well there in Jacksonville.
Oh, absolutely. And whenever you need me to come back, just let me know.
All right, thank you.
All
Take
right.
care.
Yes, ma'am.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Roz Jones. And I believe this subject of training caregivers is so important. It's something we need to keep talking about. We already have a shortage of paid and family caregivers, which is only going to get worse. It's been predicted that by the year 2026, which is just 5 years away, there will be a shortage of 7.8 million caregivers. What that means is that we need to be training a lot more people to become caregivers, whether paid or family, or hopefully at some point paid family caregivers. People who would like to be a caregiver for someone else do need training, as Roz emphasized, and I loved her top 6 things that new caregivers need to know before they start taking care of a loved one. So, any of you listening out there, if you have caregiving experience, or if you've worked as a home health aide or a nurse's aide and could actually help provide training of this sort, I hope this interview inspires you that perhaps in your own community or online, you could create some sort of training to help people become caregivers for their own loved ones at home, because we're going to need so many more hands available to take care of the patients we have. And I think even next year, this is going to get worse for a while as we continue to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. So if you're interested in getting coaching, as I mentioned, I will link to Roz's sign up form where you can contact her if you'd like to have a conversation with her and talk about coaching from her, whether to become a caregiver yourself or perhaps how to create a caregiver training program yourself in your own community. So remember that I'll be back next week with another interview. The podcast airs every Monday and without fail. It's been going on for 5.5 years now. So you can count on me to be here for you every Monday with something new. If you enjoy the content, please share it with other people who might benefit from this information. Also, you can help support the podcast by leaving a review on iTunes or wherever you happen to be listening to the podcast. That helps improve the ranking so that people who are searching for content like this will be able to find it. And I appreciate all of you who have left wonderful reviews for me already. And then again, my page at patreon.com/EOLU is the place to go if you are interested in contributing just a little bit of financial support on a monthly basis to keep the podcast going. So until next week, remember, we're here for love. So face your fear, be ready for whatever happens next, and love each and every moment of your life. Bye-bye.